Lovely, very warm welcome to everyone to the Nathan Glyde session today, and I'm feeling really happy again to be with you and to be exploring this experience together. Yeah, as always, really encourage you to have just a little look through the chat and really feel those warm wishes and invitations to be well. That good morning wish from many, the bonjour, the just the kindness and the expressions of community together. And so, as always, if you wish to, feel really invited to put some words into that space or just read it and appreciate it. So, a little bit of introduction from me. My name's Nathan. I'm leading the sessions this week, and I'll also be keeping an eye on any of the technology side of things. As far as I know, there isn't someone else behind the scenes. So if you have any difficulties with the technological side, I'll keep an eye out for that. Um, Oftentimes, our responses are relatively simple to follow, which is try refreshing the browser, circle, resume your session. And actually, resume is going to be a key word for us today, to refresh rather than resume. And I will also be guiding the Dharma reflection and meditation on our kind of ongoing theme of imagine that. And there's always a bit of a play on words, I find, with many of the titles that appeal to me for kind of gathering these things. Uh, so interesting to see what we imagine is happening, and also what we can do to imagine a better way of being, a better way of living. So, as many of you are kind of maybe waking up uh, from from a night of hopefully good rest, but there's really no guarantee of that, and hearing the callings of the morning. And some of you will be at different places in the day, but we're all gathering together to, in some way, wake up together in community, wake up to our community, and wake up to our richer potential. And yeah, I think we can kind of step into it. I think many of you know the form, so there'll be a reflection, there'll be about half an hour or so of meditation together, and then there'll be space for any of your questions and reflections. So, what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is it's kind of building on what we've already been saying. But if you're dropping in for the first time, yeah, I think there'll be enough here for you to pick up on. There's a sense that we make presumptions about the way the world is, about what we are, about what things are. And from that, we make assumptions. We assume a position. We assume an activity, and and then it leads to kind of consuming those things, consuming, rejecting the greed and aversion modalities that come through us. And sometimes we might see that and see that pattern and see through that pattern, see, oh, that's what's happening, and find a way to stop doing it. And that's really wonderful. That's where the teachings, the practices kind of come together in a much more liberating way, because we actually upgrade our behavior patterns and get our way out. What often happens, or what the Buddha used to say would happen to those of us who haven't gotten to understand the teachings and haven't gotten to taste our richer potential, is that we actually just repeat that pattern. We actually tighten the knot of what's being tied by tying another knot over it, pulling tighter on the ends of the string. We have that kind of knotted feeling. And it's interesting, I think, that we actually have again this sum word. So pre-sum, assume, consume, and we also have resume, yeah, to take again. And in a sense, this is part of the Dharma teachings that could get easily misunderstood, but let's just delicately touch upon it and offer an interpretation that's quite helpful. Taking again is actually part of what we might call cyclical existence. Yeah, often called rebirth, redeath, those kinds of things. We don't necessarily need to go into that. That might be more literal than we feel comfortable taking it as. But literally, samsara, the world, also means the wandering. Yeah, so the world was seen as a wandering entity, and they use this word kind of synonymously, wandering and world. This is the world, and we wander through it, and maybe we're wandering through cyclical existence, and we might extend that out to between lives. But more importantly, it's actually cyclical existence of wrong thinking, yes, presumptions, and unskillful actions, assumption, consumptions, right? That's the repeating pattern that we're most concerned about. That's the cyclical existence. That's the resumption of normal service. Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of greed and aversion happening here. And, we might go about that in an unskillful way. Two unskillful ways that we might go about that. We might start looking for who's to blame. And for some of us, that will go into self-blame. And for others of us, through and other times, it can go into other blame. Yeah, but it's blame that we're fundamentally going into. It's judgment. And we do this as if it makes things better. Or, maybe we think it's a way that it's less likely to happen again if we find out whose fault it is. Yeah. That this issue is self-born, it's blamable, and that depends on another presumption. And it's a presumption that leads us again into dukkha. It's a bit like thinking that I am thinking, or I thought I am the independent thinker of these thoughts. That I don't know where they come from, and I don't remember making the intention to think that. Right? We're not going to dive into free will and unpack that kind of also another tangled knot. But just to say, is that a sensible way, right? Is it sensible to judge myself as some kind of sole responsible for the stress and distress? Does it make sense also to say, well, it's nothing to do with me, it's actually others, or it's our culture that's letting us down and causing me to act in these ways? Yeah, so that judgmentalism arises. But outside of judging in that kind of fixed sense, all those things, and putting that substantiality and putting that constancy onto interior and exterior things, we actually step out of this kind of whose fault is it, who's responsible for that, and actually arrive at a position that says, who's willing to be responsible towards this? Who's willing to not resume? Who's willing to step out of these patterns? Yeah. Not because it shouldn't have happened. It didn't happen, and I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve to lose there. I didn't deserve. We don't deserve to win or to lose. Really, it's not really the right paradigm. Not because the universe doesn't care about you, and the universe doesn't care about your feelings or something like that. We can't say anything either way about what the universe is up to, but because it's a disempowering view. Yeah. And so we have practices and teachings that kind of help us out of judgmentalism, whether that's towards an inner criticism or an outer criticism. We can practice patience, and when the time is right and it's appropriate for us, we can bring in even forgiveness. Yeah. And maybe wherever it lands, self-forgiveness, other forgiveness. So, oh yeah, the causes and conditions led to this to happen this way. Not because we want to lose our integrity. We definitely don't want to lose our integrity. We don't want to lose our learning also. But just to say, is it helpful? Does that actually help untie the knot? Does it help unbind the experience? Right? And we can kind of taste that in our own possibility of freedom to not resume. Maybe we bring in gatheredness. It's actually just breathe and not be so resistant. Maybe we can bring in some metta quality, what we call kindness quality, so we can more directly taste for ourselves the well-being, the peace, the connection that we're always on some level kind of aiming for, aiming towards. Right? And actually building that well-being, acknowledging our kinship, our similarity with others, and rebuilding that connection through there. So that's kind of one side of what can go into resumption, right? But even aside from the blame game, we might feel like, well, I used to do that, I don't do that anymore. That's really good news, and you know, many of us still do. Yeah, many of us get into those loops. But also just that understanding of how we tighten the knot through, kind of a repeating escalation, building up of entanglement. And there's this lovely word in the Pali called papancha, which is a proliferation of thinking, objectification, projections, presumptions, assumptions, consumptions, and then they build. And we know this, right? Earlier in the week, Vanessa mentioned in a question this word Vedana, or reflection that she was sharing. It's this kind of reactivity um, that we have towards life that says, oh, that's unpleasant. And we take that as true, and then we start reacting and acting upon it. The Vedana presumption, that's unpleasant, that's pleasant, that's not really anything either way, leads us towards thinking, well, that's pleasant, I should get it. That's unpleasant, I should get rid of it because it's unpleasant. Don't want those kind of things around. I only want the pleasant. And these things which don't really matter, I just kind of overlook, ignore. And all of that leads to a higher level, a more significant level of reactivity, right? Which is also unpleasant. And so that receives a vagueness. Like, oh, this level is unpleasant. We've got this kind of larger bundle, and I don't want that. Yeah, or I want that over there, which is going to be better. And I start, pulling, pushing, reacting onto existence at that level. And it's like, oh, and I feel unfulfilled, and I feel this, and it kind of leads to these further assumptions, presumptions, and unethical consumptions. Yeah, we build this samsara, this cyclical existence. We build stress and distress, the very thing that we're here to relieve, right? So we need to apply a bit of intelligence, skillful questioning, and some determination. Yeah, some self-determination. Yeah, I'm going to see this through, even if this is uncomfortable. A freedom determination to resolve. Solve meaning to loosen. Resolve. In this case, is the emphasis word. To really loosen, to really untie, to really dissolve our entanglement. And amazingly, what that starts to do is it also starts to bring us into a greater sense of community. Yeah, we're actually more open to our participation in existence. So I make self-determination as if from my own side, but I'm actually determined to awaken. And my awakening will be for the benefit of all beings. My contributions, my not resuming, my seeing through the presumptions, my taking a different stance through my assumption, my interaction with experience, and what I choose to consume, the peacefulness, the well-being, allowing to absorb those qualities, right? And the amazing thing is we can also start to bring in those different ways. Like we said, at a time it might be helpful to bring in more patience, more forgiveness, even, right? But also we can bring in more welcoming, more allowing to what's there, right? Because that rejection, that picking and choosing between apparently, solid separate things, what if we switch to allowing, to welcoming? Yeah. That starts to not be a resumption. It starts to step us out of that pattern. What if we start to notice the contractedness that dukkha brings, suffering, stress, reactivity, tightens in layers and from layers of reactivity until we really we're shrunken, or we're very rigid, or raised, belly's tight, breathing's in this way, and we kind of soften, soothe, we open, we release. We actually start to say, even in the midst of this, we can open, release, relax. But equally, we can also have a sense of this practice is for more than myself. This isn't just to get things organized so I feel comfortable in my situation, but actually I'm here dedicated and devoted to the awakening of myself, but for all beings, what we call the bodhisattva vow. Yeah. For as long as beings exist, may I be here to support them in well-being, in freedom. And so we open, we welcome, not just because it's good for us. Thankfully, it is good for us, but actually because it's good for all things. And those combined together start to be kind of a catalytic escalation of beauty. And what we mean there by beauty is they align us with our deepest intentions. As we started the week and we tune in and we remind ourselves regularly, what is it I want to develop? What is it I want to see more of? What's that quality in life that you want to bring into being? And may your meditation be seen as a cultivation that brings that into being, that we step out of the cyclical existence of creating disturbance and we bring peace. It steps out of antagonism and actually brings harmony. It steps out of reaction to what's unpleasant and brings compassion and wisdom. So with that intention alive for you, whatever it is, let's invite you to bring that with you into the meditation. We'll have half an hour of practice of disentangling ourselves from what has come into being and start to open that out in more liberating ways. Tuning into the body, if the body feels accessible, just checking, are there any places where tension has built? And it can be tempting or expected to not want there to be tension. But not wanting it there isn't resolving. It's actually resuming a pattern that might lead to more. Like getting stressed about a headache. If you wish, you can imagine that the attention is coming through the being with the purpose of inviting, releasing, relaxing through the face. If you enjoyed the meditation from yesterday, we can breathe in and out through areas of tension, releasing. Gentle around the eyes. Maybe you can roll the shoulders if they're feeling tight as we settle in. Be helpful sometimes to hold the palms of the hands in a soft way so that they can almost receive life. It can, for some of us, that kind of mirrors the attitude that we might be holding the breath, not holding on to it, but guiding the attention along with it. An open palm to the sounds around if we prefer to be in the realm of sound. Notice how we can support non-resumption through softening the holding in the belly as much as it wishes to, as much as you feel to, and whatever remains, we also accept and allow. Before I leave you, just to practice quietly, let's just check in with the heart. However you feel the heart, it could be that you feel the chest area, it could be something more not so much physical, just a heart quality. It can be tenderness, it can be sadness in the heart, it can be joy. Whatever's there, does it have the space? Can we bring that kindness and also that openness into the heart, for the heart, and maybe even through the heart? So if you wish, this can be your practice, is just releasing. When you find there's tightness, inviting to release, inviting to open with kindness. It could be that you marry this with foreground attention with the breath, with the sounds, whatever practice of mindfulness you enjoy. And then when you notice you've wandered or you notice that you feel the tightness, then just work through again, softening and opening, inviting to soften and open. whatever we notice, welcoming, allowing that to be here. Experimenting with less reactivity, but also this sense of opening any contractions that appear. Any tightness, released, invited to open. Noticing what's happening now. Especially noticing that if you feel you're doing well, the meditation is going well, how much you think that's because of you, and maybe start to cruise, not really apply attention so much. Or if you feel it's not going well, how much you can form a self view there, and maybe give up or feel disappointed. That idea of being responsible for, when we know there's many causes and conditions that lead to this moment, and many causes and conditions that will contribute to the next moment. And that self-determination determines the self, and we can be determined to resolve, not to resume old patterns, old self-views, unwholesome thinking and unskillful actions. This is a possibility to step out of that stream, that loop. And as we mentioned, it can be helpful to remember a sense of practicing for all beings, even if this doesn't make it better for me. Maybe bringing more kindness into the world, opening from tightness. Could do that for other beings' well-being, or all beings, including us. What would it be like if we really allowed our awareness to spread wider, including the whole of the body or including the wide field of sounds? And also internally, right to the core of our body being, and letting that be wide and open, flexible and sensitive. Also not picking and choosing between what's pleasant and unpleasant, but allowing, welcoming, meeting in kindness, lessening demands as a practice. How is that? Wide attention, welcoming in, knowing and releasing. All beings, for the sake of all beings, including the phenomena, the vibrations that appear, treating them like beings if you wish, like guests, honorable guests. You may notice that the space of awareness, the sense of that spaciousness can shrink. Almost as soon as we open it out, it can begin to shrink. And yet, maybe there's a bit more well-being available when we open that out. And if there is, and you enjoy, then really feel invited to spread it wide, allowing it to go deep within, so that all that we know, all that we sense, is welcomed, maybe even embraced in kindness, including the space above, behind, all directions. All vibrations, all sensations, all lights and tastes and aromas, even subtle things like this sense of oneself. We bathed in this kindness, much freer of expectations than we normally experience. Even this quality of kindness that's maybe permeating, spreading through this awareness can also send kindness to the kindness itself that comes through, that opens, that liberates. Through this wider, kinder way of being can also radiate out that kindness, radiate out that wish for peace and harmony for all beings, coming through for the well-being of all beings, near and far, known and unknown. At this point, it's an invitation to sustain what can be sustained as we transition and move through changing conditions of the posture. When we come out of a session of meditation, is it possible not to come all the way out? Not to let go of all that we've grown, supported? Our practice can be a taste of not resuming, not cycling again into patterns of behavior that happen to us when we're not so clear, not so steady, not so gathered, and not so kind. Much of the time, we could really lift up that quality of kindness and find our capacity that we can be kind without losing our integrity, without losing our core of our intentionality. And, it's a dance, and if you find that you've shifted away from what really feels more aligned for you, what kind of question is, what is that? What can I do about that? So also something that's offered to us in a real kind of wide open, welcoming kindness are these very sessions. And in a moment, I want to mention some events that are coming up after this, and really look like beautiful events, well worth checking out. But also just to really name it again, that all of this wouldn't be possible if this wasn't being freely offered to us. What a possibility that brings, that we can be here in this way, supported by Sangha Life, and because of that, we have that opportunity for those of us who can afford it to give back, to contribute, to participate in making sure that this continues and is available. And as we were saying, for all beings, that our practice here, also in our dana, in our giving, is also a practice of making this available for others. Things that we appreciate, things that we support, really benefit from being given to others. Yeah, and I hope that there is a giving that comes from when we feel more well-being in ourselves, that we give that out to others, right? And that's part of how we may say that we're practicing for the awakening of all beings. But also, I like this idea of kind of paying it forward. That sense of generosity is that I'd love someone else to come and step into here. And there's kind of two ways I can do that. I can invite people, say, hey, come into this. I think it's going to be really nice. And, you should come back on Monday and see who's there and, tune into that. It looks like it's going to be a really lovely session. And also, I can contribute to make sure that Sangha Live continues to exist, continues to be supported in those ways. So let's see if I can copy in a link here. Vijayamala Birch is coming to Sangha Live. There it is. And let's just see if I can copy that. I want to put this into the chat. Looking at it, I just wonder if that link isn't quite right. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but I think I can see a couple of extra letters appeared. Let's take those out. See if that works. Okay, not sure. Link's maybe not working. But do look out for this. There's a live course starting on the 10th of April. Freedom from Struggle, Practices for Living Peacefully with Pain and Illness. And Vijayamala Birch, some of you will know, is a real expert in this field. Really has a lot of gifts and capacity and beauty that they bring into their teachings. So yeah, do have a look into that. So it looks from the language there that it's not freely offered in the same way as these sessions are, but there are scholarships available. Oh, okay. So maybe there's a better link underneath my link, which looks like the link that I was supposed to do. So that's good. There is meant to be a BR after living. I presumed it was a mistake. So yeah, we have some time now for any kind of questions and inquiry, reflections you have there, and you can mention in the chat if you have a question. Please put kind of capital letters question there, and you can also come on the screen, and you're very welcome to do that. And I'm seeing, but maybe this has been happening for a while. No, that wasn't the right thing to press. That Patricia, you have your hand raised. Do you want to mention in the chat if that's an intention, kind of a purposeful intention? You want to do something? or if it's an accident, can be. Okay, thanks, Maureen, for putting in the right link. I'll just wait a moment to see if there's anything that you may want to bring into this space. But the key principles that I wanted to share today is that, when things don't go well, we can lean into um, internalizing and externalizing blame, right? And looking for different ways to step into that. But also we can underestimate our potential, right? And there's that delicate balance, of saying, well, I didn't do it, I'm not responsible for it, and that kind of shuts that down. And the other hand is actually saying, oh, I see that there's so much I could do, this is my fault, and in between those two is the skillful means of stepping into experience where we can actually support and kind of co-generate well-being. Okay, so I actually have a few questions here. So Yasmin is inquiring, is being kind and spacious with anger enough for it to dissolve and transform? It's a really great question, and there's it significantly, but also subtly, makes a difference if it's internal anger or external anger, and if we're receiving it or if we're giving it, right? In terms of, will the kind and spaciousness make a difference? If someone outside us, well, let's start with us. If inside myself I start to recognize what are the qualities that lead to anger, and I notice there's definitely an absence of kindness there, and there's definitely an absence of spaciousness. And if I start thinking, well, anger is conditioned, it's not unconditioned. What are the conditions, right? What are the conditions that support anger to be there in its particular way? And if I feel like, well, anger's not appropriate here, what then happens if I encourage spaciousness? Can I maintain anger in spaciousness? Can I maintain anger in kindness? Right? And I think that what we'll find is no, they are contraindicative of anger, right? Anger is not a spacious, loving emotion, right? If I step into a zone of being kind and spacious when someone's being angry at me or being angry in the world, and I just remain kind and spacious, that might have a lot less impact. Like, it would almost feel to me like it would be lucky if that had an impact, is that they really picked up on, like, wow, this person's really kind and spacious. It would then involve me being able to support them to find kindness and spaciousness. And that might be asking a lot. And it might mean that what I imagine as kind and spacious, um, having to be quite creative there to help shift that place where we can actually move the conversation, move the dimensions, that we can kind of dampen down some of the fire in that, and help the person get in tune with what it is that they are trying to protect through their anger, and how they're really kind of feeling, and what is the most supportive and, we could say, productive way. And that requires us to have worked a fair bit with our own patterning of anger arising, and seeing what it does in terms of othering, what it does in terms of judgment and blame, and what it does, in all those ways. So it's a really great question, and it does depend a lot. That we can actually resolve and ease a lot of the negativity out of anger, and tune ourselves into the love underneath that, of like, why is that arising? Why is so much power and potency here coming? And then why is it actually landing through a series of presumptions and assumptions that, I'm angry about this person in this way? Yeah. Because they are that kind of a person. And in a sense, what the Dharma is encouraging us to do, both for ourselves and for others, is actually step out of a sense of essence, that this person is like this. They have that essence. They're unpleasant person and they're, a net negative on the planet because of, who they really are. And we also look at ourselves and say, well, who I am, I notice, depends on my activity. And when I can move into different activity space, I can release unwholesome, unhelpful patterns of behavior, wrong thinking, unhelpful actions. And that's kind of the core of what we're looking at. So really depends. And externally at certain times, we're definitely not just going to tolerate anger. Yeah. And actually say, no, 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 that's no good. We've got to find a better way. And I'm not going to get angry with your anger and make a resumption out of this. Yeah. So I see there's a question from Jane, and I'm going to, if it's okay, Jane, I'm going to pop it in my pocket for tomorrow because I try to keep these, well aligned, and I wanted to give enough time to Yasmin's question, and I think it's good not to rush that element, and I really appreciate, though, Jane, that you've offered that question. I'm definitely looking forward to responding to it tomorrow, and I'm also looking forward to tomorrow to see if we can find another word that ends in sum so that we can find a really helpful and useful teaching for it. And who knows, maybe it's out there. I think there's many words that have been gifted to us and many ways that we can utilize that and bring it into being. But yeah, in the meantime, really wish you well. And thank you for your support of your presence and all the many ways that you support Sangha Live to be here and to create the opportunity for us to meet in this way. So wishing you well. Take care.